Well, I am a big fan of monster movies, and the Predator franchise is one that I've always wanted to get better treatment than it has for a long time. Is Prey finally the franchise installment that I've been waiting for? Stick around and I'll share my thoughts. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Prey, the Hulu original movie. The synopsis on IMDb reads, "The origin story of the Predator in the world of the Comanche Nation 300 years ago. Naru, a skilled female warrior, fights to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth." I don't know if it's really the origin story of the Predator. I still think that there are other entries in the franchise that can provide more information about the Predators as a culture or whatever. But let me give you an idea of what I think is going on in the vibe of this movie. I would describe it as historical sci-fi action, but not action horror, as I think the roots of the franchise put it in. It's more about really this young woman's struggle to be respected by her tribe as a real hunter. I think it leans hard enough into this theme that it actually feels overstated to me and takes time away from what could have been more moments of suspense and more moments of action horror with the Predator. There's still a good chunk of that, and probably the same amount as a number of other entries in the franchise, but I still feel like more time could have been given to it instead of to the kind of the themes that they were going for with this main protagonist. The dialogue is almost entirely English, and I can't help but wonder if at some point the original concept was to be in the native language that it's portraying, with or maybe without subtitles. Hulu does offer a native language dub, which I did not check out because I just thought I'm not going to want to watch their mouths moving differently than what I'm hearing. But I think that if they would have shot it in a native language, would have created a more immersive feel. And I think as a result, the story and the themes would likely have translated through, those performances enough to come through. I was thinking, just watching this, I can tell through the tone, the emotions that they're portraying as they talk to each other. I can tell from these scenes, even if there was no dialogue, I could tell she wants to be respected as a hunter, and her tribe is not seeing her or women in general as viable hunters in their culture. And so I can see that, and I would want to root for her just, on the basis of those performances and those basic ideas alone. I think that it just wouldn't surprise me to find out that there was an early version of this movie in the pitch or somewhere before they started shooting that was not going to be filmed in English, but I don't know. It feels like they went a safer route with this premise rather than create something more artistic that would have really required more thought and attention from us as audience members. But I'm on board for that. I can see why that's more risky, but personally, dang it, I think I really would have liked that. As it was, I found the dialogue and the story pretty uninteresting, and I really think I likely would have been more engaged if I was having to try and infer what characters were saying as I watched these scenes play out. As far as the cast goes, casting here was a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, I love that the native actors were not chiseled specimens. There's a lot of guys that are not wearing shirts, of course, but they're not like this usual really sculpted Greek statue kind of physique. They just have what feels like a more authentic kind of physique to me, and so I really appreciated that they went that route. The native actors also had what felt to me like an authentically understated and stoic way of speaking that just kind of felt right. Now, I don't know if Amber Midthunder, the lead, is as much kind of pure native in her descent as the other cast members, but her facial features either way seemed noticeably very different from the surrounding cast, as though she just is coming from a different gene pool, and that just it made her stand out in a way that made her feel less authentic to the environment and the tribe that she was in compared to the other actors that were cast. Her performance also felt a little too modern to me now and then. I think some of that was the writing and the dialogue, but some of it I think was the performance style as well, just different like little mannerisms and things like that just felt a little bit 20th or 21st century, and she also seemed to lack the accent that other performers around her had, at least to limited yet inconsistent degrees. There were some of the native performers that had more of an accent, some that didn't, and I just would have preferred in general this a more aesthetic consistency across the native cast. As far as like how this movie looks, not just visual effects, but the lighting as well played a major part for me. The movie felt very low contrast and brightly lit at all times, with a camera style that felt very standard and kind of TV-like to me. I really would have preferred higher contrast with darker darks, to contrast with those brighter brights. More things in shadow and imperfectly lit with a less steady camera. All of these things, I think, would have helped me feel more embedded in the environment. The hunting grounds, I think, in these Predator movies are a really important part of what makes them work for me or not work for me if they're not leaned into in the right way. And I just wanted to feel more like I was in the thick of this environment, like being in the jungle of that first Predator movie. They also frequently alternated between real and CG animals that in a way that really distanced me from the action. The effects, were certainly more modern than the original two movies in the series, but nevertheless, they had what looked to me like a lower budget feel to them compared to, CG we would see in big theatrical release movies. The camera also kind of mysteriously cuts away during a few major moments of violence that I think could have brutally showcased good practical or good digital effects, and in the process enhanced the intimidation factor of the Predator. It's rated R, so there's not like a reason for them to cut away to avoid, an R rating. It's rated R. And I, it's not that I'm like really into gore and stuff, but gore in a movie like this can really create these shocking, jolting moments that help us to feel the threat, the danger of the enemy or the monster. And I think there were some missed opportunities in this one in that regard. And in fact, when it was cutting away a time or two, it kind of took me out of the movie and made me wonder what's going on. Is this a budget thing? It just kind of took me out of the movie. Sometimes, you can cut away and it can create, without seeing the actual visual, a greater sense of like, oh my gosh, your imagination is wondering what happened. But that wasn't the net result for me, at least, when it cut away the few times that it did. When a franchise gets to this point, I think it can choose to, if it wants, make sequels that really try to innovate and reinvigorate a series, helping it to find a new audience. This premise on paper, setting it in this setting, this time period, this kind of cast, it seems perfect for that kind of reinvigoration of the franchise. And I feel like the title Prey is also trying to tell audiences, we're going to come at this and we're going to give a fresh approach to this. We're not even calling it Predator or anything. We're calling it Prey. But I feel like the budget that was given to the overall visual presentation puts this more in the category of sequels done on the cheap to make an easy buck off of an existing fan base who will just kind of feel compelled to check it out, even if they know it's not going to be that great. As far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, equality of women seems the most clear and obvious theme to me, and it's a worthwhile theme. But if I don't feel for the hero, then it just kind of feels like an inserted trope. Well, inserted is too strong of a word. I mean, it's not forced in by any means. It's a major part of the skeleton of what this plot is about. I really suspect, though, that if the movie had been in a native language, maybe even without any subtitles, I would have felt its intended theme more, because I would have been more immersed in the setting and leaning forward to understand the characters. As it is, too many things about this production kept me at a distance and unable to really feel immersed in the setting and characters to really connect with the theme or anything else on an emotional or intellectual level. Now, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, well, dude, you love the Predator, even though you're almost always disappointed with the installments of this franchise. So, I mean, you're going to see this one sometime. Just wait until you've built kind of a stack of things that you want to watch on Hulu, because this one is not worth even that $7 tier on its own merits. It's rated R for strong, bloody violence, and those are all of my thoughts for now on Prey. I would love to get your thoughts and reactions, as always, in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can get more information about the benefits of being an insider over at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.